So if you've been told to convert your IRA to a Roth IRA as fast as possible, fill up the 12% bracket, the 22%, maybe even the 24% every year, this video is for you. Because that advice used to make sense, but in 2026, the math has changed, and depending on your situation, the old playbook could be costing you a lot more than you think. I've been helping retirees with this for over 25 years, and what I'm seeing right now is that in certain cases, once you factor in things like IRMAA, lost ACA subsidies, and future tax rates, far too many people get too aggressive with Roth conversions at the wrong stages of their life. Today, I'm going to walk you through our two-step approach using two real-life scenarios to help you determine when and how to do Roth conversions for your unique situation. I will show you one couple where the old advice is hurting them and another where aggressive conversions still make perfect sense. Let's take a look at an example. Steve and Mary, both age 62, their spending needs in retirement are about $140,000 a year. Both are on ACA insurance, also known as Affordable Care Act insurance. And if you're not familiar with Affordable Care Act insurance, it's what a lot of people use to bridge the gap between when they retire and when Medicare kicks in at age 65. Now, if you are a part of some states, you might have a state-sponsored version of Affordable Care Act insurance. In addition to that, Steve is currently drawing $30,000 from Social Security and $10,000 from his pension. Mary is currently drawing $30,000 from Social Security, and together they're receiving about $10,000 worth of interest income from various bank accounts. In addition to that, Steve and Mary have about $1.5 million in IRAs. They currently don't have anything in Roth IRAs, and they also have about $500,000 in what we called non-qualified investments. Non-qualified investments is essentially a fancy term meaning not in a 401k, not in a retirement plan at work, not in an IRA, and not in a Roth IRA. So generally when you own non-qualified investments, you can tell that you own these investments because you receive a 1099 every year. So this could include brokerage accounts, bank accounts, and various other types of investments outside of retirement plans. Now, with Steve and Mary, under the old rules, many advisors and many people would suggest using up the 12% tax bracket and doing Roth conversions every year until required minimum distributions start. Depending on your age, this would be at 73 or 75, like in the case with Steve and Mary. So one of the things that's very important for Steve and Mary to know is that in 2026, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was passed, and this has significant implications for some people who are on Affordable Care Act because once your modified adjusted gross income exceeds a certain threshold, something called the cliff came back. And this is a deal breaker for many people considering retiring before the age of 65. So the cliff starts for Steve and Mary when modified adjusted gross income exceeds $84,600. And my hometown is in Wisconsin. And if Steve and Mary lived here, this would cost them over $31,839 extra per year because they went over that cliff, and they'd have to pay that amount for 3 years. So the grand total over 3 years would be an additional cost of $95,517. And again, the reason that this occurs is because Steve and Mary chose to do Roth conversions. The Roth conversions, that amount that's converted actually shows up as modified adjusted gross income, and it pushes them over the cliff. So clearly doing Roth conversions for Steve and Mary in 2026 because of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act does not make sense. Now that we've talked about the reasons when conversions don't make sense, let's talk about when they do make sense. The bottom line is Roth conversions make sense if your tax rate will increase in the future. And one of the things I find with many people is they fail to consider all the different reasons why their tax rate may go up in the future in retirement. Politicians could increase tax rates. We all know that the national debt is soaring, and it's not implausible to assume that tax rates might go up to help pay for the national debt. Another thing that could cause your tax rate to go up in retirement is required minimum distributions, which again, depending on when you were born, will either start at age 73 or age 75. Another thing that many people don't think about that could cause your tax rate to go up in retirement is If you're married and one spouse passes away, but you still have a similar level of income coming in for that surviving spouse now will go from filing a married filing jointly tax return to a single tax return, which in a nutshell will mean that for most people, they'll see their tax bracket increase in that scenario. So now let's talk a little bit about the new two-step approach. Number one, forecast your future tax rate. Number two, convert if you are in a lower tax bracket today than what you will be in the future. And in addition to the simplicity of this approach, there are several things you can use to turbocharge this so it's even more valuable for you. Some of the things you could consider is delaying Social Security, because for many people, Social Security will show up as income, which will mean there's less room to do Roth conversions. Number two, always make sure you look at each year independently and take advantage of low tax years when you're looking at doing Roth conversions. You want to avoid those high tax years. In addition to that, another thing that can turbocharge your Roth conversion strategy is to pay the taxes on the converted amount with non-qualified funds if you can afford to do that. If you're over the age of 59 and a half, you can always withhold taxes from the converted amount and convert the remaining amount into a Roth IRA. But if you can pay with non-qualified funds, you achieve two objectives. Number one, you increase the amount in your tax-free bucket and you decrease the amount in your non-qualified bucket, which is subject to tax every year for the rest of your life. In addition to that, if you put your high growth assets in your Roth IRA and your more conservative investments in your IRA, you will stifle the growth in your IRA bucket, which is fully susceptible to taxes in the future, which is a good thing. And you increase the amount of assets in your tax-free bucket, which is a good thing. And you can mix and match this to make sure that your desired risk tolerance is achieved between the different buckets while maintaining higher growth in the tax-free bucket and lower growth in the bucket that's so fully subject to taxes in the future. A final thing you can consider to turbocharge this strategy is stacking charitable contributions in Roth conversion years if this provides you with itemized deductions. Now let's take a look at a second example with Tom and Karen where it does make sense to still do Roth conversions despite the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Tom and Karen are both age 65. Their spending in retirement is $120,000. Their income sources include Tom's Social Security, which he'll choose to start at age 70 of $45,000, Tom's pension of $25,000, and Karen's Social Security, which is also $45,000, assuming she starts it at age 70 as well, which in this example, we're going to assume both Tom and Karen take their Social Security at age 70. We'll further assume that Tom and Karen have about $2 million in IRA assets. They don't have anything yet in the Roth IRA assets, and they have $500,000 in that non-qualified bucket. And we're also going to assume with Tom and Karen that the rate of return on their investments is 7% per year. There's a 2% inflation rate. And we'll assume that the tax brackets stay the same throughout the retirement and there won't be any big changes. And the recommendations for Tom and Karen in this scenario are going to be to convert and utilize the full 12% tax bracket on an annual basis until they hit required minimum distribution age, which is for these guys at age 75. Now, by Tom and Karen using this Roth conversion strategy, their projected lifetime tax savings are $140,000. The additional after-tax inheritance that they will leave to their children is approximately $270,000, assuming that their kids' combined tax rates are 30% when they inherit the money. They'll also reduce required minimum distributions being taxed within the 22 to 24% tax bracket when they reach that age of 75. They will mitigate impacts of Medicare premium surcharges for themselves. They'll create more flexibility for spending throughout retirement if they have large needs because they'll have more money in a tax-free bucket that they can potentially draw from penalty-free to help supplement their income in those years. They'll also create more assets to be inherited tax-free by their children, who can take those tax-free distributions from the Roth IRA over up to 10 years if they choose to. In addition to that, they lock in today's known tax brackets, reducing exposure to the uncertainty of future tax rates going up. Finally, they'll reduce taxes on the non-qualified bucket. So to summarize what we went over, Steve and Mary lost close to $95,000 that they didn't need to lose because they chose to do Roth conversions. Had they done this in previous years, it wouldn't have been nearly as severe, but since the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, it has changed the game. Tom and Karen, though, it still made sense for them to do Roth conversions, and they would have over $140,000 in lifetime savings for themselves in taxes and $270,000 for their children. Now, if you're watching this and you're realizing that your Roth conversion strategy might need a second look, that's actually a good sign. It means you're thinking about this the right way. Because the truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all answer here. It depends on your numbers, your tax situation, your health insurance, whether you're married or single, and what the rest of your retirement plan looks like. And that's exactly what my team and I help people figure out every day. So if you want to run this with your own numbers, there's a link in the description where you can book a call with us. No pressure. We'll just look at your situation together and see where you stand. So the bottom line is this. It's important to develop a long-term tax plan pre and post Medicare, considering all factors, including Affordable Care Act costs, or if you're part of a state that has a state-sponsored version of Affordable Care Act costs. You need to anticipate large expenses, future income needs, future charitable intentions, anticipate which Social Security start date makes the most sense for you and if you're married, your spouse. You have to consider how big your future required minimum distributions are and what that will do to your future tax rate. All of these things are extremely important to consider when you're looking at doing Roth conversions, and time is of the essence. So the bottom line here is Roth conversions aren't dead, but the old blanket approach of converting as much as possible, as fast as possible, that needs to be reconsidered. In 2026, the planning landscape has shifted, and if you're not accounting for the indirect costs, you could be paying significantly more on every dollar you convert than you realize. The new approach is strategic. It's year by year, it's personalized. Now, Roth conversions are just one piece of the tax puzzle in retirement. And if you're retiring before the age of 60, there are 3 other tax mistakes that I see people make all the time that can cost you just as much, if not more. I break down all 3 in this video right here. I'll see you there.